We are Eliza,
Lori,
and Brenna,
and this is Crime Feast.
Each week we serve up a platter of murders,
mayhem, missing persons, tragedies, and more.
Feast on notorious tales,
ripped from today's headlines,
and resurrected from the past.
This is Eliza, and I'm serving up our crime story today. I have with me Lori and Brenna here to help me dissect the details.
Hello. Looking forward to hear the ending of this one.
Yes, glad to be here and hoping... I feel like I shouldn't say I'm hoping for something. I feel like this is such a hard topic, dealing with young sisters that are missing. And right now I want to hear the rest of the details.
It is a really, really hard story that we've been talking about. So on today's episode, I'm continuing with the story of Katherine and Sheila Lyon, two young sisters, aged 10 and 12, who were kidnapped and subsequently brutally murdered, which shocked not only the local community where I grew up in Montgomery County, Maryland, but also the nation. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, you'll want to listen to that first before listening to today's episode, so you can catch up on that. We left off last week at a really depressing moment, and I do apologize for everyone for that. We left off with the detectives finally interviewing for the first time Lloyd Welch, who was a convicted pedophile and possibly involved in a cold case for the last 40 years. He's kind of just being like cocky and playing the victim and just...
Yeah, he's the creep with the dead eyes.
Yeah, exactly. So... prior to arriving, the cold case detectives had really just wanted to confirm that Welch had been a witness to this other pedophile, Molesky, abducting the girls, which they thought was the case given the 1975 statement that Welch made to police, which pretty much said that he had seen this guy talking to them, and it was a guy with the limp, and Molesky actually happened to have a limp, and so they thought that Molesky was this guy with the creepy microphone briefcase, and had somehow taken the girls. They showed him a picture of Molesky, and Lloyd, over-exaggerate, that's the freaking guy with the damn car I was telling you about. And they're like, what? He confesses that Molesky gave him rides often, and that he is the guy that he saw put the girls in the car. And that they're like, what?
Oh, so now he knows him.
Yeah, now he knows this guy. And that they often did drugs together in Molesky's basement. Okay... So they brought up the fact that Lloyd had tried to help back then. And he says, oh yeah, I called the police, but they didn't believe me. And they're like, okay. So they ask him to repeat what he'd seen that day. And again, they still haven't told him that they have his statement from back then. They're just going off whatever he thinks he remembers or whatever he's lying about. And he says that he had been on the sidewalk at Helen's house, which is miles away from the mall. And he saw that guy, Molesky, quote unquote, put the girls in a car. And he says the girls were acting really odd.
Oh, he's completely changed.
He says the girls were acting really odd, and that's what tipped him off. And when police ask, well, what do you mean by acting odd? He's like, oh, they were kind of crying. They're like, what? He fleshes out more details, adding memories about this guy, like what color hat he was wearing, the make and model of the car, which also, by the way, keeps changing. And then Lloyd says he's going to stop talking unless they help him transfer to another prison or something. Like, what? And they're like, seriously? Like, what?
That only works in movies.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's not real life. You can't just be bargaining for stuff like that.
Yeah. Suck it up, dude. You deserve this.
Right? You're disgusting.
Yeah.
Done with that, the cops are like, no, this is ridiculous. So they pull out his statement, which is obviously contradictory to what he had told them back then and what he's saying now. And he seems surprised they have it, which, okay, what? That's weird, because why would he think they don't have it?
Oh my god, because the file was missing before.
Right, that doesn't make any sense.
That would have been the first thing I thought that, if I was, in jail and they were like, they're coming to talk to you about this case, I'd be like, oh gosh, they have my statement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what did I say back then?
Why else would they be coming to talk to me?
It just makes me wonder what happened to the file originally. They don't remember seeing it, and maybe it got misplaced, or...
Yeah. I don't know. Or they just, maybe it had a note on it that said,
not a suspect. Or,
not a suspect, or was just after the ransom, and they're like, oh, just after the ransom.
Already looked into.
Yeah, who knows? Detective Davis mentions the mall, to give himself some time just to try and, like, throw the cops off, he keeps saying, Lloyd keeps going, mall? Like he's not even, like, focusing on the conversation. He's just stalling. And he says, I don't remember making that statement. Like, I don't remember that.
Of course.
False statement. Fake news, whatever. Like, that didn't happen. Then, after back and forth, which with this guy, it just feels like everything's, like, back and forth, drawing, like, pulling teeth, trying to get him to, like, say anything real. At last, he concedes that he had not been to that mall much, though he had been there before. And they're like, literally, you made this statement saying you were at the mall and watched this guy with the creepy briefcase talking to these kids. Like, what?
Yeah.
So then, they show him, get this, guys, they show him a police sketch of himself. Remember that girl who said she saw the creepy guy staring at the girls?
Is he the greasy dude?
Yes.
Yeah, with the acne.
Like, oh my goodness.
They were like, this police sketch looks exactly like his, like, police, like, when he was arrested. Like, what is that picture called? Like, suspect picture or whatever. The one where you stand in front of the numbers and you hold up your...
mugshot, right?
Your mugshot. That's... My brain was like, what is that picture called? Yeah, so his mugshot looks just like the sketch of the creepy dude from back then. And Lloyd's like, oh, that is not me at all. I've never had a mustache. I didn't grow a mustache till I was 40. And they're like, here's your mugshot from that year with the mustache.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's supposed to be me? No way. No way. That's not me.
Wow.
And, like, we'll put these pictures up on our social media as well. They literally look like the same person.
I can't wait to look at these pictures.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
He claims he was really huge into drugs back then. That's, like, the one thing I do believe, that he's, like, he was, like, really into drugs, obviously.
It certainly sounds like it.
Uh-huh. And so he said that the things in the statement were probably just him, like, high on drugs, and he doesn't remember any of that. And they're like, seriously? And he's like, I wasn't there. I just made that up. I probably just wanted some drug money.
If he was high on drugs, how would he remember the other things he just told them?
Uh-huh. Exactly. Yeah. They go around the block a while with this guy, back and forth. He's just being evasive, pulling things back, saying, oh, I didn't say that 5 minutes ago. Oh, wait, maybe I did. You know, like, he's just all over the place. And then the police need a break. I mean, I don't blame them. Yeah. I would need a break, too. But they're like, I'm going to leave this statement right here, though. And so as soon as they leave, of course, the first thing he does is grab his statement. And he's, like, reading through it, and he's whispering, oh, my God, oh, my God. And he's, like, blowing out his breath. He is not doing well. And at one point, it sounds like he's almost going, like, they got me, they got me. Like, what? Ooh. And, of course, they're watching from the other room because he's an idiot. Yeah. Here's another thing. Did this guy think that they weren't watching him from the other room? Did he never watch TV? They're always watching you from the other room. Like, and at this point, again, like earlier when he walked in and was like, you want to be here talking about those girls? And I would have charged him. I would have rushed in there right now and been like, you're done. It's over. Yeah. It's you. You're the bad guy. But they have to keep playing this long game. So the detective returns and Lloyd says, yeah, that he definitely did make that statement, but it's definitely him. Like, but he does not remember anything. And then he says, have you talked to Helen about this? Helen was his, like, girlfriend back then at that time who's had his children. And the police are kind of shocked by him asking about Helen because the thing is, Helen's dead. And she's been dead for a while.
Oh, wait. Is he the one that killed her?
No.
Okay. No. Okay.
I mean, it did seem plausible.
I don't know what she died of, but it wasn't anything like that.
I mean, I'm automatically jumping there because he's...
Literally, if it had been anything foul play, I bet they would think so because later on, like, as they put out the news that they're looking for anyone who might have known information about him, so many people call in that had abusive encounters with him. You know, a couple of people are calling in saying, yeah, he left me knocked up. Wow. Kids he doesn't even know about. Like, he was a bad person.
Hey Crime Feasters, Lori here. We're interrupting this case to let you know that Eliza and I host another weekly podcast.
We admit to an extreme love of history, books, and wine, and we couldn't help but share our obsession with everyone else.
And so, we created a place where we could talk about all three of those things at once. The History, Books, and Wine podcast.
Join us, and sometimes our guests, weekly for happy hour chats about books, fascinating historical tidbits, and what we're drinking.
Episodes this season include genealogy, naughty princesses, haunted history, scandals, and so much more.
Thank you for letting us share, and we hope to raise a glass to books and the paths with you. Now, back to your feast. So he's shocked to find out that Helen is dead. And he's surprised that no one has told him, because this is the mother of his children. They were, I guess, not very close since he was going to marry someone else.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, he's shocked that no one's told him that she's gone. So anyways, they keep going back and forth for several more hours about this time period. And he finally admits that he probably was the guy staring at the girls, that sketch probably was him. But that if he'd helped kidnap 2 people, why would he stop there? Like, why wouldn't he have kidnapped more girls? And they're like, dude, you're in jail for,
for so many things.
Being a pedophile. Like, what? Maybe you did. Like, are you trying to make us go look?
Yeah, you didn't stop, creep.
Literally. So then he changes his story again, okay? Like, this is the guy's MO. He's just going to change his story he wants to tell them what they want to hear, but also keep enough back to make himself seem like a victim, like he's removing himself from anything that might put him in that guilty seat. So he changed his story, says he was at the mall. He was there with Helen, and that they were looking for jobs. He said Molesky was also there, but they weren't together. He wasn't there with him that time. He just saw him there. And he goes through the details of the story again.
Which is what they expected.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Only this time, it's changing slightly to match the written statement versus the one that he told him before. The car keeps changing, but the whole time the girls are always still crying as he sees the girls being shoved into this car by the bad guy. And that he then gets on a bus with Helen to, go home or something. But, by the way, the bus system wasn't working there at that time, so that's a lie.
He forgot about that.
Busted.
He forgot about that detail. And funny now that Helen is there with him, too.
Yeah.
Because she's dead and can't corroborate.
Mm-hmm.
So then they're like, all right, listen. You've been a victim of abuse before. He had told them about his father, who had raped him before and beat him a lot as a child. He's like, a lot of abused kids were taken advantage of by Molesky, and when they got older, he would, give them money to help him, lure in more victims and, drugs and stuff like that. So they're like, is it possible you were one of his victims and you just helped him with the kidnapping of these girls? And Lloyd is irate. He's like, I told you that I was abused by my father, but I was never abused by Molesky. He didn't try to come on to me once. That never happened. But of course, they're like, everything you say is a lie, so what are we supposed to believe here? And they're like, maybe he coerced you and you felt you had no options but to help him kidnap these girls. But he just keeps denying everything. He says he never got paid by him for any sort of anything, and that it was just someone that he got high with. Just before leaving that day, because they've literally been there all day running circles with this guy, Detective Davis asks Welch what he thought Molesky might have done to the girls. And Lloyd says, oh, he probably killed them, probably raped them, probably burned them. The detectives and the state's attorney who are listening are like, who randomly says burned them?
Right.
Yeah.
Normally, you'd be like, oh, probably threw them in the woods or buried them in the backyard. Those are the normal things, but...
Threw them in the river, buried,
Nobody says burned. That's really weird and, oddly specific.
It's too specific.
Mm-hmm. It's way too specific. Yeah. So they're like, huh, that's interesting. And also, this guy's such a piece of work. So they come back for several more interviews, and of course, guess what? His story is always changing. Sometimes it's subtly. So they point that out. They're like, your story keeps changing, dude. Stick with your story. And he's like, I'll take a lie detector test. And he's super confident, I'm not guilty. And so they pull in another detective who does the test. And, oh, are you guys surprised he fails the test?
What?
Is anyone surprised?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all.
No.
Yeah.
Of course, failing it makes him irate, though, right?
Of course.
He is livid that he's failed this test again.
Yeah.
And he argues back and forth with the woman who did the test. And then he finally admits, okay, fine. Molesky did take the girls, and they took them to the house, and he went there. And he heard the girls screaming. He saw men in there with the girls, and he ran away.
He saw men?
Yeah. They're stunned. Holy shit. He went from, knowing that he was at the mall, watching him take the girls, to all of a sudden he's in the car and he sees what's happening. What?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't remember, of course, where this house is. He describes it as having like a wire fence, like has a basement around back. Like, you know, the houses that have like the separate basement entrance, like it's a bunch of cement stairs down to a door.
Yeah.
Not like the flipping open ones, but like stairs down to the basement door.
Oh, yeah. We had one of those houses before.
It's like a cellar almost.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like super old. And that door had a window on it and a lock. And he said the main room had a couch, a TV, and that there was a separate back room with a mattress and TV and stereo, and that's where they used to party. So they're like, what the hell is going on right now? And they ask him about the girls again. Lloyd says he did not go in. He just looked through the glass, heard them screaming, said he got really scared because they looked drugged up, they were naked, and 2 men were raping the girls, and that's when he went to make his statement to police. Yeah.
So do they believe him now, or is he part of it? I know you're coming out with that,
I know.
But oh my goodness.
But like, I think they're like, okay, this guy's a liar, and there's got to be some truth to some of the things he says. Like, as they keep talking to him, little pieces come out that like, okay, that part's true. Okay, that part's true.
Probably truth.
He does keep going back to them crying.
Probably truth about what's going on, but an untruth that he didn't get involved and is just placing himself as like an outside observer of what happened.
Right. So he's not, he's just a victim as much as these girls are. He's witnessing their torment.
Bullshit.
And of course he's not the bad guy. It's just, so I'm sure this is so frustrating to the police, but obviously they have to continue being super patient because what else are they going to do? And also at this point, he's worried after he looked in the window that the bad guys there would have seen him and then would come after Helen and their baby, which Helen was pregnant at the time with one of their children. So Lloyd has now obviously directly involved himself in the kidnapping of the girls because he says we were in the car, which they also had recorded because they're cops and they're going to record your statements.
Because they're smarter than Lloyd.
But he doesn't know that, you know. So over the next several interviews, he tries to downplay his involvement, always leaving himself as a victim like he's been doing this whole time, that drugs have eroded his memory. He doesn't remember anything that's happening. He doesn't know about that. He didn't say this, or that wasn't part of his story. And then he starts mentioning partying with a cousin named Billy that lived near his Uncle Dickie. And they're like, who? What? And then he says he's scared of someone in his family. He can't say anything more about what's happening because someone in his family is going to hurt his children who he abandoned like 40 years ago.
Yeah, because he cares so much about his children.
And didn't they get adopted out? So he probably doesn't even know where the children are anyways.
He doesn't. He's not spoken to his children. So it's getting stranger and stranger. And then the cops are like, who's this person that you're scared of? And then he says, is my cousin Teddy still alive? And they're like, oh, okay, so you're scared of your cousin Teddy? Like, is that what you're inferring here? And he's like, yeah. Teddy was there. Teddy put the girls in the car. They're like, what? But also, by the way, he's now saying the girls got into the car voluntarily with Teddy because they wanted to get high.
At 10 and 12.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. Yeah, that's exactly what I was like, really?
Yeah, I'm not believing that one.
And after all these years that he's been saying that they were crying when they were getting in the car, now suddenly...
Now they've gotten in there because they want to go get high.
No.
Also, this is such a lie, too, because the 12-year-old girl, Sheila, she had recently stopped being friends with a girl because the girl offered her a cigarette. So she dumped a friend over a cigarette. You think she's now going to get in the car with a bunch of strangers
to go get high. Yeah. No.
And bring her 10-year-old sister with her? No. That is not a thing at all. That's literally false.
Yeah, no, that's not happening.
He says Teddy at the time was like 18 or 20, okay? Well, here's the thing. Teddy was actually 11 at that time, so Teddy's not taking the girls anywhere. And...
No.
Probably not.
But you know who was?
Teddy probably wasn't doing drugs yet either, so...
Teddy also had 2 broken arms in full casts, like...
Oh my god.
Talking like a T. At that exact time. They found a picture of him during that exact moment. They're like... This kid with 2 broken arms, full arm casts, is helping with this abduction. This is... No.
Again, drugs.
Lloyd doesn't get very many details right, does he?
Right. So then he changes the house altogether. It's not even Ray Molesky's house anymore. Now it's the guy that Teddy was living with. Okay, so it's not the pedophile Molesky. But guess what? It is another pedophile.
Teddy's a pedophile?
No. Teddy was sold
What?
to a pedophile by his mother in exchange for new carpeting in her home.
Are you kidding me?
Is that an uncle?
Nope.
That's disgusting.
Oh my goodness.
How jacked up is that?
Horrible.
And they find Teddy, and they talk to him, and he claims, oh no, he wasn't molesting me back then. I was his male lover. He still will claim
He
that
was
to this day,
11.
that was his male lover.
Ugh.
Yeah. And also, by the way, that guy who was molesting him as a child lived with him as an adult and was doing it to his kids
what?
too.
Oh, what is wrong with these people?
Literally, these people are whack.
Wow.
And it gets worse. Like, I'm really sorry, guys. This is not a good case. It is an awful, disgusting case. So anyways, they're able to debunk also that it wasn't the a-hole molesting Teddy that had done anything to do with the girls. Like, that's not a thing. This story is so whack. You can't even make it up. Like, it's so whack. During all of this, the basement hasn't changed. It's still the same looking basement going around the back with the cement stairs and the glass door.
Yeah.
By the way, now he's not getting on the bus with Helen anymore. He's put himself in the car. That story's changed. He's changed which car it is, and then he changes that he never actually went with the girls to the home. Before they got to the home, he asked them to drop him off, and that he would be going to get her ice cream. So he said, he got in the car with them because the girls wanted to get high, but he had to go get Helen some ice cream. So he never went to the house. He didn't see anything happen. He left. He's not involved anymore. And it's like, guy, you're like all over the place with this. You're lying. Everything's a lie. Everything you say is literally a lie. A million lies later, Molesky's obviously out of the picture now, guys. Like, what? This is really strange. And the man instead who's there with Teddy changes again. This time, it's Uncle Dickie. Guess what? Uncle Dickie happens to be a security guard at the mall. Now the house that the girls were brought to is his Uncle Dickie's house. And he has no idea what happened to the girls after he ran away, because remember now he's back there seeing them again being raped, and he's run away. He has no idea what's happening. So it turns out that Uncle Dickie is also a real disgusting human, as is a lot of the people in the family. There is a history within the entire family, across the board, of rape, incest, abuse. Uncles, fathers, grandfathers, brothers, cousins, they're all raping each other and the females in the family.
What the hell is wrong with this family?
Literally gross. Like,
It's awful that that's such a cycle.
I don't remember which person it was, but apparently he also raped, I think it was his wife's sister when she was 9.
Disgusting. Like, what the hell?
It makes no sense. And how does that even happen, across the board? They all just sweep it under the rug. It's so normal to them that nobody says anything. Also, Lloyd's dad, Lee, is best friends, obviously, with his brother, Dickie. So, now we're pulling in Lloyd's dad, Lee. Again, I have to say how patient these detectives must have been as all of this is unwinding, because I don't know.
I would want to reach over and just, grab him by the throat.
Shake.
And...
what are you doing? Yes. And, what is wrong with these people? How I would want to go arrest everyone.
Yeah.
You're all arrested. Everyone.
Mm-hmm.
A good family, right?
I'm just thinking his kids, thank God they ended up with somebody else. Hopefully they ended up in a family.
If they stayed with him, they didn't
normal
have a chance.
family.
Right.
Yeah.
I swear, every cousin, uncle, whatever is going to...
Yeah.
So disgusting.
It's awful.
So gross.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of the Welch family lives near the Wheaton Plaza area, but they're transplants. So the whole family is from the Appalachian Mountain area of Virginia, called Taylor's Mountain, and most of them still live there. Lee and Dickie moved away from there to the Montgomery County area at some point where they started their families, and everyone else still lives on this crazy mountain, which apparently this mountain is literally scary. It is a scary place, as in you just go there and you disappear place. That's what it sounds like.
And with that family, yeah.
So they interviewed some people that live there, and they were we're looking for some bodies or whatever. The people were oh, well, you mean the bodies up on the hill? And the cops are what? So they go up, and there's just a random graveyard. And eventually they do look through it, and they don't find the girls there. It's just I guess when anyone dies in the family, they just bury them there. Possibly other victims. Who knows? They're a crazy family.
Horrible.
It doesn't make sense.
Hell?
It's a family.
So that was kind of a side... No, it's crazy. So the cops go and interview Dickie and his wife, who plead innocent to everything.
Of course.
Lloyd's a liar. He's in jail. He's the worst of our whole family. Everything he said is lies. None of us have ever raped anybody else or molested or anything like that. We would never do this. He's crazy. But eventually, as they continue investigating and questioning everyone in the family in Montgomery County, as well as Taylor's Mountain, there's a cousin who comes forward. She has extricated herself from this whole bit. She actually doesn't even want to talk to cops, but they're like, can you please just talk to us? And she's like, okay, yeah, so back in 75, there was this really weird moment where Lloyd drove to the mountain with Helen, and he arrived with this nasty green army bag that was full of bloody meat, and it smelled so bad. Yeah, and the cops are like, what? And she's like, yeah. He said it was meat that they'd bought, and it rotted on the way up, and so he wanted to burn it. And they were like, what? And she's like, yeah, it was gross. She's like, I didn't ask him anything about it. I moved on. She's like, but you can talk to my brother, who I don't speak to, and he'll tell you that he brought this bag and burned it. And they're like, what? Shut the front door. So they go find this brother who hates his sister. I don't know why they're at odds, but they just don't talk. He's like, I can't believe she talked to you and told you that, but yes, there was a bloody bag. He told me it was a dead dog. And so they're like, okay, you told him it was a dead dog, told him it was rotten meat. What?
Lloyd can't get his story straight with anybody.
No, he can't. And also, by the way, he claims to have never driven to the mountain, even though now there's two people who are like, oh yeah, he totally was there. And so this cousin helps him burn the dead dog that he thought it was on the fire. And people that they've interviewed around the mountain remember that fire because it burned for a long time and smelled terrible. Like down the mountain, they could smell it. I just can't even. So back in Montgomery County, the cops are still trying to figure out like where the murder took place. They're pretty sure that the bloody bag was either one or both girls. It's clear something terrible happened. And then Lloyd tells them that his father or Uncle Dickie probably chopped her up under a bridge by this river near his Uncle Dickie's house. And so the cops go, even though they know they're probably not going to be able to find any evidence by this river 40 years later. They just go anyway. But when he's looking at it, he's like, okay, this bridge like is literally still visible from all angles. Like, it's not like a covered, like, I mean, it is a bridge that covers ground, but there's so much space open around it that like literally anyone could see something. They're not going to dismember a body there. It's too, and the river is very shallow. Now, I guess over time, a river could go from being deep to shallow. I don't know. With things change all the time, and 40 years is a long time. But in any case, the cop is like, this did not happen.
Yeah.
Here. It's just another of his lies, and we're never going to find out the truth. Like, it's just never going to happen. We don't know anything. Meanwhile, they've excavated the area where that fire supposedly burned. They find, like, one tooth and, like, a little wire rim that could be glasses, could have been a bracelet. It's too hard to tell. There's really not any evidence at all. So detectives are just sort of, like, losing hope. Like, it felt like they were on to something. They were finally going to solve this case, and it's just not going anywhere. And so Davis leaves this random river area, and as he's driving down the street, he looks up, and right in front of him is a house that looks exactly like the house that Lloyd's father owned. Lloyd's home that he lived in with his parents. Turns out, guess what? It is his dad's house. Obviously, someone else lives there now. But he's like, holy crap, that looks like the house that he's described this whole time.
That he originally said was McCluskey's house.
Right.
Yeah.
So he knocks on the door, and the owner's like, what? And he's like, listen, I'm trying to solve this case. Can I look at your basement? And the lady's like,
that would be so creepy, though. Can you imagine?
Like, I know. I would be like, oh my God, I can't live here anymore.
Yeah.
I'd be packing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be moving after that.
I'd move out. I'd be gone by the time he came back up. So he goes around back. It looks just like the door. He goes down. It's exactly the same layout. He's like, oh my gosh.
What a coincidence.
What the heck? Just like that statement showed up, now all of a sudden the house showed up. They get a warrant. They spray the crap out of the basement with luminol, and guess what? That one corner where the gross room was, it's just lit up. Like, there's so much blood stain there that it was a murder.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, too many decades have passed now, 4 decades. They can't get any DNA from it, but they are able to determine it was a human. So now they have a murder team. And because Lloyd has given them so much that put him there in that space, and now they also have the evidence of him having driven with the dead body to the mountain, they're able to really, like, say, guess what? We got you, buddy.
It's enough circumstantial evidence to...
Right. And they're having to try this as a no-body case, and that is extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But they have enough that they think that they can win. We'll never know exactly what happened, but the detectives do have their theories. One of the things that they thought happened is that on the day the girls went to the mall, Lloyd, along with his father and probably his uncle who dressed as a mall guard, managed to lure the girls into the car. Probably lied and said something like, your parents sent me, they need you, something like that.
Yeah, they're going to have trust in him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, yeah, if he's dressed as a security guard, the dad, I mean, yeah.
Right. The girls were then taken to Lloyd's father's house where they were held against their will, kept drugged or drunk to keep them docile, where they were abused repeatedly, filmed, because that's something else Lloyd had said, was that they'd filmed them, and someone else corroborated at one point that Uncle Dickie showed them a film of, like, not the girls, but porn at some point.
Mm-hmm.
They think that possibly Lloyd's dad and brother were, like, peddling child porn videos and things like that. The younger daughter, Kate, they think that she had been giving trouble from the start, according to some of the things Lloyd had said about her being crying a lot, her screaming a lot, trying to get away. They think it was actually her that was probably killed there and dismembered and put into the bag that Lloyd then drove to Virginia, to Taylor's Mountain. And they think that, this is so gross, but they think that in exchange for Sheila, the cousin helped burn the body, and then the cousin then took Sheila as payment, probably abused her, and disposed of her either on the same bonfire or somewhere else on the property. They've never been able to find her or the other girl as well. The tooth that they found on the fire, they were not able to extract any DNA from, but given what witnesses had said, they believe that it was one of the girls, at least. Mm-hmm. So Lloyd pleaded guilty to 2 counts of murder, but still denied having been the one to rape or kill the sisters. The reason he took the plea was because he didn't want the death penalty. So, yeah, he was sentenced to 48 years in prison. He was 60 at the time, and so he will definitely die there.
I hope he hears her screaming every night when he goes to bed.
I hope that they all know he was a pedophile and that they just torture him there. So his uncle was never charged with anything.
It's disgusting.
Even though he probably was just as guilty. His dad was already dead, so nothing there.
Yeah.
There's nothing good from this case, but the positive thing is that he spent most of his life in jail, and he wasn't able to do this to anyone. I mean, the other...
Yeah.
Anyone else. Yeah.
Things that he was charged for, but at least he was put away early on.
Yeah, his list of victims is quite long. And the parents finally got closure.
It's horrible,
even though
closure,
I'm sure it's nothing like what they wanted.
And ever.
Yeah. But he's in jail.
Yes.
Forever and ever and ever. And then he's going somewhere else terrible. So yeah, this was a really sad case for sure. But also, I'm glad that after 40 years, they were able to finally figure out who had been involved with this, because it's such a horrific thing. And like, Brenna, you mentioned on the last episode, like, to be a parent, like, it's terrible enough that happened to them, but then to not know, like, what the end result was is just awful. So I'm glad they were able to know in the end.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that, but it's also one of those catch-22s, right? It's like, yes, you're happy that you know what happened, but you're also not, because it was so horrific that everything that they had gone through. So then you as a parent are also... Because you think about that, right? You always put yourself into the mindset of your child and everything that they were feeling and thinking and what must have been going through their heads at that time. And it's just horrible. It's torture for the parents. It's, as much as the girls. It's just a horrible, horrible thing.
It's every parent's worst nightmare. And that's why parents in your area told kids not to go to that mall for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Literally.
Yeah. And to think that family is still, like, up on the mountain now.
And what abuses are happening with those in the family. I just can't imagine growing up like that.
Mm-mm.
It's just awful. I hope they all go to jail, too, at some point, or at least get some sort of ramifications for their terrible behavior and abuses.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that there would be some kind of investigation going on or something.
And maybe there is. I don't know. Yeah.
Right.
That would be good.
Something to end the cycle.
Yes.
So, if you want to watch the documentary, people, It was called Who Killed the Lyon Sisters, and it was on Amazon Prime. I also read the book The Last Stone by Mark Bowden, and that was a really good book. And then there are videos on YouTube of some on the news, like of at the time, like in the 2013, not in the 70s, that you could watch if you were interested in that sort of thing. And then a bunch of, you can literally find newspaper articles about it on the internet everywhere. Just really sad, but at least he was caught.
Yeah.
We'll be thinking of the Lyon sisters.
Yeah.
We will be. Thank you for keeping their memory alive.
May they rest in peace.
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay, well, on that note, we will see you guys next week.
Thank you, Crime Feasters, for listening to our show.
Source material about today's case can be found in our show notes.
To keep updated on the podcast, follow us on Instagram at Crime Feast Podcast,
Facebook at Crime Feast Podcast,
or Twitter at Crime Feast.
If you have a story you want shared on a Mini Bites episode,
please email us at crimefeastpodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you download your podcast. That way you're notified every time a new episode is live. Also, if you've enjoyed the episodes, we'd love for you to leave us a review. Subscribes and reviews help us get noticed.
Until next week,
stay safe out there. We don't want you on the menu next.